What's up, guys? Welcome back. Remember, if you like the video, hit like, hit subscribe, and don't forget to share it. So, we all know Joe Biden doesn't really care about the stock market. At least that's what he says. He states that the stock market is not a good indicator of how well an economy is doing. Currently, we have an administration that is trying to redefine what a recession is. I've gone over this in my past videos. Recession, 2 consecutive negative quarters of GDP growth. Why is that? Well, if GDP falls, that means the economy and economic activity has fallen. It has receded, therefore it is a recession. Very simple. They are saying that because we have had 2 negative quarters of GDP growth, it doesn't necessarily dictate that it's a recession because, well, unemployment is up. Or down, sorry. It's at record lows. Well, let's go over some numbers here. First of all, inflation keeps rising. Why is it bad that inflation just keeps rising? Well, the Fed is going to continue this aggressive approach of hiking rates. In doing so, will have more of a negative impact on the stock market. 56% of Americans have a stake in the stock market, many of which, or the majority, rely on that as their retirement, either future retirement or current. Right now, the stock market, as of today, has just dipped below 29,000, a level that hasn't been seen since 2020. And he is currently in the worst performing stock market, Biden is seen in like the last 50 years. And I want you to think about that. COVID, stock market plummets, like 30%. However, it still comes back and ends up extremely positive. Like it has one of its best years of all time. 2021, great year. Biden's first year. Guess what? Biden is now 100% negative in all three major indexes with as far as stock market performance for his entire presidency. 2 years, he has had no positive stock market growth. That delays people's retirement several years. Remember, when you lose money, it takes more of a return to gain it back, right? If you lose 10%, it takes more than 10% to regain your losses. Furthermore, unemployment increased in August, 0.02%. Real wages, adjusted for inflation, negative 3.8% year over year. That means even though people are receiving increased wages, because of inflation under Biden, they're losing money still, almost negative 4%. Existing home sales fell 6%. New home builds have fallen 9.6%. That was a 17-month low. Again, these are August numbers. Personal savings have fallen almost 10% since Biden has taken office. Normally, I would not blame inflation on the president. And I know the president doesn't have a full say with a lot of the stuff going on in the economy. The economy works in stages, right? You have ebbs and flows, and it's just a big cycle. The problem is that our current administration, and some in the past, can fuel it. They can dump diesel on the fire. Here's why we are in the position we were in. We were going to experience inflation no matter what. As soon as COVID hit and we did our first stimulus package, inflation was going to happen. As soon as we did the second one, we were going to have more. But the third one was larger than all of those, and it was unneeded. The problem with the government and this Keynesian theory of economics is that the government comes in and puts in spending that is supposed to help get us out of a recession after the fucking recession has already ended. By the time the American Rescue Plan was put in place, we had already had like 3 consecutive quarters of GDP growth. The stock market had already not only recovered, but was at all-time highs. Unemployment was falling regardless. There was no need for the American Rescue Plan. So that was another, $1.6 trillion in spending that probably ends up costing around $3 trillion when it's all said and done. Furthermore, Biden proposes his infrastructure deal. You can argue, well, we need it. I think is a shit bill. I haven't seen any infrastructure going in, have you? Another $1.2 trillion. It's not even that we didn't need the infrastructure. It's more the fact that they knew we were going to experience the inflation that we're experiencing and the economic pains that we're experiencing, and they decide to go and pass a spending bill anyway. On top of that, $1.2 trillion infrastructure with only 25 to 30% of offsets accounted for. So that means 70 to 75% of the bill, they don't even know how it's going to be paid for. Then we just passed the $800 billion of the Inflation Reduction Act. What a joke. In the Inflation Reduction Act, there's nothing that incentivizes any new investment other than what the government wants to invest in. They actually increase taxes on our companies on book value, by the way, which is basically what they're reporting to shareholders. So whatever they say, they're making a profit to the shareholders trying to get new investment, we're going to tax 15% of that. Talk about a way to disincentivize gains and growth. Again, this is all hurting everyday average people. The offsets in that bill, less than 20% of offsets are accounted for. So that is also projected to cost an upwards of around $5 trillion when it's all said and done. He cancels student loan debt. What was that? Another $300 billion? No offsets. No way to pay for that money. Where does that fall? On the taxpayers. We have inflation because demand was just skyrockets because we pass out money. Think about it. We pass out money, basically just dump it on people. They go and they buy what they want. During the pandemic, when everything is shut down, people have lost their job, but companies are making record sales. Why? Because people had money. Because we're pumping money out to the economy. And we kept doing so even after people were going back to work and making money. And this administration says we need to give out more. Oh, inflation's at 8.7%, whatever it is. Oh, fuck it. Another $1 trillion in spending. That's not helping anyone. It's not helping anyone at all. The performance of this administration when it comes to the economy is piss poor. And the only thing that the left has to pride themselves on is a low unemployment number, which, by the way, is going to strongly reverse as the Fed keeps increasing rates. And there's a lot of criticism going towards the Fed's direction, which a lot of it is justified. However, there's only one tool the Fed really has to combat inflation, and that's hiking interest rates. That is going to have a negative impact on our economy. And if you don't consider us being in a recession now, just wait until they keep hiking them. And now the left is criticizing Chairman Powell, who I don't really care for either, for his aggressive approach. So you're always going to cause unemployment. No, you guys have caused this. He wouldn't have to keep doing this if you didn't keep spending fucking money. Then you have Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who says that millennials aren't having babies because of capitalism. If there's any problem with capitalism in the free market, it's the government itself. And I've explained this. The fact that they intervene, the fact that they are trying to overregulate a system that will take care of itself. There's so many examples of this. And the government is trying to, again, print money and spend it how they feel it should be spent. They're trying to dictate demand. We are going down this Marxist route, and we're almost at the point of no return. The government is not there to dictate demand. It is not there to dictate supply. But for whatever reason, and I know why, it's for political power. You know, the left just keeps trying to please their base, but eventually their base is going to figure out, wow, this really is not good. It's going to do more harm than good when we start handing out money like we are doing. But you will have the people at the bottom end who are getting the money and they are happy, but eventually they're going to realize, like, well, shit, I get $1,000 in basic income a month, but that's like having $10 2 years ago. This stuff happens in other countries, and you need to look back at history. Look at what happened with Greece. I believe Italy ran into the same thing. Because of the social spending policies in these nations, they default. They go bankrupt. They need bailout. The country needs a bailout. And if that happens to the United States, the entire world will fall apart. I hate when people say, well, there's global inflation, Michael. Well, no shit. Go look at how many countries did stimulus packages for COVID. But also, the United States can cause a global inflation because we run the world economically. Our economy is the most influential economy in the world. So what ours does has an impact on everywhere. It still comes back to our politicians and what they're doing that's hurting the economy. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I'm trying to explain this in a very simple manner for people to understand. You can't keep spending money. You need to reduce the deficit, and you don't need to reduce the deficit by increasing revenues. And the revenue increases, by the way, that the Biden administration is touting themselves on has come because of the high inflation rates. Go look it up. It has nothing to do with them cutting spending. They're not cutting spending. They have increased their revenues in the form of higher taxes. They've done it in the form of increased GDP as of last year. But it's going to reverse on them. By the way, their policies that they're implementing, like the Inflation Reduction Act, like the infrastructure deal, when they start talking about their offsets and how they're going to pay for the bills, they were banking on the increase in GDP from the investments. However, they didn't go off the fact that we were going to see a recession. There was never anything in there about that. They didn't calculate reduced GDP and how that would impact the bill. They only said it would increase GDP, which it has not, and it will not. And that's why they are starting to freak out about the Fed, because higher rates, right, kind of carries across the board into the economy and makes borrowing more expensive for everybody. The price of a $400,000 house recently, the monthly payment has increased around $700 a month. And yet we have Democrats talking about how we have an affordable housing crisis, yet their policies have made housing far more fucking unaffordable than anything. Just because they want to subsidize someone's rent or they want to subsidize someone's mortgage. And by doing so, inflation has skyrocketed and rates have skyrocketed and will continue to increase to try and combat the inflation that they keep dumping fuel on. It's a zero-sum game. We're just going to continue down this path until something changes. I said from the get-go, as of early 2020, early 2021, that I didn't see a lot of positive, to kind of push the market higher. I didn't. I've been saying that once I hike interest rates, which is a pretty common concept, the stock market was going to fall. And boy, has it. And there's not really any, optimistic forward outlook on it. It's going to just either be flat or continue its path. So remember, when you're voting, you need to take into consideration, and there's a lot of Republicans, by the way, that don't understand this and are just as bad. You need to take into consideration what the people you're voting for are saying they're going to do. We need to cut spending on the government level. We need to stop handing out money. We need to honestly cut the spending in the regulatory section. The regulatory budget needs to be cut in fucking half. We need to stop it. Just let the free market take care of itself. We will experience pains, yes. But the government takes the pain and then drives a fucking stake through it. In fact, you'll recover from, let's say the economy had a broken arm. Well, the economy puts a cast on it, heals the arm, and then the government breaks it again in 2 more places. That's exactly what's going on. And they're going for knees next.